Welcome to Marsha's Plate. This is an interview episode where we talk to friends, family, other community members, and anybody else we want to talk to. Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey, how you been doing? Just checking in today. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is your girl Diamond, and I have a special guest with us today. We have Rio Antone, hailing from Las Vegas, Nevada. And I met Rio two Creating Chains ago in Las Vegas. They were on a panel about fashion, and they were just such a bright, bubbly vision at that event. And I just knew that I had to bring you on the show. So welcome, Rio, to Marsha's Plate.
Well, thank you so much for having me. First of all, I think that this show is absolutely fantastic and it's beautiful. And I feel really happy to be a part of the process of the growth of it all.
I know that you are
hmm
a queer, non-binary fashionista.
hmm
You have worked in social work,
hmm
and you have tons of other creative endeavors that and colors about
hmm
yourself. Tell me about, what do you consider yourself in regards to like your career, in regards to how you are moving in the world?
So my whole staple line is that I am an entertainer, educator, artist, and truth teller, basically. So I try to use all of my different outlets of art forms to be able to create opportunities for people to learn about themselves. And one of the biggest outlets that I use is artistry, makeup, singing, acting. All of these things are outlets that I use to be able to tell stories because I want people to understand and humanize the experiences of gender, and not just gender, but self. And I find that a lot of people have revelations when they can see themselves inside of the storylines that I tell or the things that I present in educational ways. And that's something that really, really makes my heart tick. Like, that is my calling. My calling is to enlighten people on this planet about who they truly are.
To get that enlightened, to
hmm
get to your purpose, you had to
hmm
start somewhere. So I know, based on research, that you grew up in Flint, Michigan. Tell
hmm
me about your growing up story. Tell me about, who was loving on you, who was
hmm
your Flint, what does your family unit look like? What does growing up look like for baby Rio?
Mm. I grew up youngest of five people. I mean, youngest of five kids in a single household in Flint, Michigan. My mom, she was a social worker, and she was raising us the best way she knew how. Majority of my siblings, like we had pairs of two, except for one. We all had our own uh, father that my mom had children by. So it was two that had children, that she had children by, and then it was my oldest brother who had his own father, and then it was me and my twin brother who had our own father. And growing up with your part-time siblings was really different because we were raised almost with a different genetic code, even though we were all raised in the same house, because we all had different storylines added to our personal stories. And I think that mine was a little bit indifferent because I was the youngest of five. Even though I'm a twin, I was always treated like the younger one. My twin brother always looked and acted 10 years older than me. So the expectations of me was to kind of match his energy. He was very outgoing, very just like sweet and kind and charming and popular. And I was just young, little dowdy kid who really didn't understand that I was really honestly feeling like I was a shell of myself. So the way I projected was timid and scared to kind of just announce myself in any way. I was bullied a lot by my family and by people who surrounded me. And that kind of was my reality and my belief about myself for a long time. It wasn't until I got into around high school age that I kind of started to realize that I was a little bit more and also different. And one of the ways that this unraveled was that I remember being young, because I grew up as a biological boy, and being told that that's what my reality was. And I never quite felt comfortable with that, especially in comparison to my twin, who felt extremely comfortable with that. So for a long time, I allowed myself to kind of like lose myself in my imagination. Maybe it was my Pisces rising, who knows? But I allowed myself to kind of just daydream often about a version of me that wasn't stuck, that wasn't this person that felt like everything had to just flow the way that society around me told me I needed to wear the outfits that I really wanted to wear, to do the things that I felt like I needed to feel like the person that I truly actually was. And I remember I used to steal my sister's clothes, and I used to steal my mom's old ratted up wigs. And I would, for 30 minutes every day after school, be alone because my mother would be late coming from work. My siblings would be coming from school at different schools at different times. So for those 30 minutes, it was like a ritual where I would go into the restroom, and it was age 13, 14, and I would put on makeup, and I would just, I mean, badly, might I add, and I would just like allow myself to see all of the beauty that I actually really truly felt. And in those 30 minutes, it became almost like the most sacred version of me, because while I didn't know how to put a name to it, I was actually learning how to become me fully. And I still had all this shame attached to it, because I knew that my family would not see it the same way that I seen it. And I didn't even know how to even express it, even if they did see it. But somewhere in my brain, I just couldn't stay in that bathroom. So I felt so hot in my heels that back when MySpace was still a thing, I made a MySpace profile. At this time, I had this alter ego. Her name was Serenity and Evans. I remember making a MySpace page, wearing this outfit. I did outfit of the day. This is back when social media had the beauty influencers on YouTube that did outfit of the day. And I did that with this laptop in my hand because I didn't have a phone. I used that camera on there to take my selfie pictures. So I'm holding this big ass laptop, and I'm pointing it towards the mirror because I'm like trying to take all these cute pictures, looking a hot doozy mess, might I add. You get what I'm saying? And I think that despite me looking crazy at that time, you could not have told me that I wasn't beautiful, that I wasn't like magnetic, and that everything about me was shining and glimmering. So I said, well, let's take this to the internet. I'm like, nobody will ever know. I just thought that I was truly just like two different people. Like nobody would ever be able to tell.
And what years was this?
This is me in 10th grade year. So this is, I think this is 2010, 2009, 2010. And I kid you not, I'm like literally in this bathroom, and I'm like, this is my Hannah Montana story. I'm over here like they'll never know what's happening for me, because like this is a flawless transition from who they think they know versus what I'm looking at, because all I can see is the beauty that I was. And the MySpace page was almost like a declaration of the emancipation of Serenity, to showcase who she truly is to the world without me having to be attached, or so I thought. So I said that she was from New York, New York. And then I started to add everybody from Flint, Michigan, with all of these pictures that I took in this bathroom because, yeah, that's the perfect thing to do. And I added everybody from my hometown. When I went to school the next day, I'm truly thinking like, oh God, like I feel so good because like I finally got this on the internet, and it's almost like my little secret. And I was in my second hour class, and I remember my friend Kenosha, shout out to you, Kenosha, who was sitting in front of me, and she said, Rio, why are you on the picture? She said, why are you on the internet in a wig? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like stunned. I stopped and I said, what are you talking about? And she was like, she said, are you kidding me? She showed me her phone, and my heart sunk, because if she seen it and she knew it was me, then that means everyone else will. I truly in my mind was so in love with how I felt and what I looked and what and almost the embodiment of truly every part of me was being seen, because all I could see was the beauty in me, right? I truly thought that that's what everyone else was going to be looking at. I didn't really have good makeup skills at the time. I was just a baby little 15, 14-year-old, you know? But what I will say is that my heart dropped.
Out
I
of
was like, oh,
shame or out of guilt?
both, because I'm still carrying the understanding that my family does not have the understanding of queer people, trans people, and as a whole, and just the understanding of anything that has to do with not the heteronormal cis mindset. So my brain already told me that I was in danger of this situation. So when I wound up finishing school that day, I wound up going home. And when I went home, when I opened the door, there was a intervention waiting for me. I'm talking about my immediate family, some of my extended family, god siblings, cousins, and some of our family friends were sitting in the living room, all surrounded around our computer. Now, this one, we had those big block computers, right? So we had a big block computer in the living room, and on the screen is my MySpace page. And my mom sitting in the chair, she turned the screen towards me and said, "Rio, we need to talk." I'm obviously shocked, but I'm going to lie my ass off for an Oscar if I can. So I literally was like, how do I get out of this? You know, how do I make this not seem like this is something, you know, that this is just crazy? So when my mom said, we found these images, because my mom is a social worker, so she's like building it into it. She's like, we found these images online and this girl kind of looked like you. And me, I looked at them shocked, knowing obviously it's me. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That dude kind of look like me. Who is that? That's crazy. I'm over here squinting. I'm like, who is Serenity? Who is that? I'm just saying the name incorrect on purpose. And my mom looked at me like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. But I was like, she just kept going. She was like, so she started clicking through the pictures. She was like, I don't know who she is.
She in my house.
I have a twin out there. That's crazy. Like, and I already have a twin, but like I got like another twin. It's crazy. And it got to a picture where it obviously became so undeniable, because it was just this awkward pause. My family background snickering because they know that I'm just bold faced lying. My mom looking at me almost with this face of disbelief, because I've never found myself lying to her. Like I was such a mama's baby, right? Growing up. And this is the first time that she could adamantly see that I truly lied both face in her face. And it got to a picture where I was holding that laptop and my mom was like, well, isn't it crazy that like this girl in New York has literally the same background shower curtain as me, and um she also got even Kriana's like same dress. That's crazy. And it was just too like obvious at that point. I mean, the whole thing was obvious, but for me, it was just like, okay, well, now I need to say it. So I paused and I looked down and I looked up and I was like, that is me. And my mom stopped me and she was just shaking her head, she like little swelling tears in her eyes. And she said, well, do you want to be a girl? And at the time, I did not know what trans meant. I had never seen anything on TV that advocated for identity and gender nuances. The only thing that I had ever seen on TV, and it was in its first season, was RuPaul's Drag Race. And that was the only thing even remotely conversing about gender bending, which is a far cry from trans identity. But it was just genuinely the only thing that I seen that I could even relate the idea of my identity to. And I didn't know how to say the words. And I was like, well, no, I don't want to be a girl. This and that. I was like, for my highest heart, trying to like hurry up and try to say and deny and convince. And I was like, no, I was like, I don't know. I just enjoy this. And she looked at me and she shook her head and she didn't say anything. She got up and she walked out. And all of my family slowly started to walk out and gave me the same energy. It was almost as if they were dumping their shame onto me. And the only person that stayed behind was my twin. Immediately he said, Rio, why do you keep doing this weird ass shit? He said, don't you understand how this hurts your mama's feelings? Don't you understand how this hurts mama? You like walking around here acting like a freak. And those words cut deep with me because the reality was I had no way to understand how to truly advocate for myself. So my thoughts and beliefs was always rooted in deep Christianity, Midwest belief systems. And I was like, this is true. I am a problem. I don't see anyone else walking around here doing the things that I do. And truly, it's weird. And it is something that is a disgrace because I've been taught that that's what it was. So I learned to shove myself back down into the hole.
I want to unpack that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just thinking about the timing, and you are telling me a isolated person who is, you just said the only thing you saw that was even remotely gender bending was RuPaul Drag Race, and I know what was going on at that time. I know what was going on in 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012, 2013. We were going through, this was Laverne, and this is just me giving context to people who are listening. Laverne had her Times Magazine um, uh, thing on 2014. That
Mm-hmm.
didn't just flip a switch. Things were happening
Mm-hmm.
before that. So
I agree.
we had Isis King on American
Mm-hmm.
Idol.
Which y'all remember.
We had Candace Kane on
Yeah.
primetime television on Dirty Sexy Money.
Mm-hmm.
We had YouTube was in its heyday. Like it's something now, but this is when YouTube was growing, and even myself
Mm-hmm.
was coming up, and there was tons of queer activists on YouTube kind of blowing up, trans activists telling their stories. We also had the young budding Jazz Jennings who would go on to have her own
Mm-hmm.
show. But she, at this time, she was 5, and she was in those early stages of her life, and her family was supportive. She was doing Barbara Walters interviews.
Mm-hmm.
This is also the time that Kim Petras over in the Netherlands was also the young at the time. Now, I'm saying this because this is the facts in her country. This was not
Yeah.
going on. This does not go on now in our country, but she at the time was the youngest sex change in her country because her
Mm.
parents supported her and allowed her to do it. But she was the youngest at the time. She hadn't won the Grammys that she has now, and blah 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 blah. But she was trying to be an artist, and her parents had supported her. So when I'm giving all of that context of what's going on,
Yes.
and because what Rio is saying is that when I was going through my gender journey, none of these things were accessible to me. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have access to these things to see them and imagine. And what it tells me is that in your family, because what doesn't make sense to me, and I'm not asking for you to make sense, you
Mm-hmm.
to make sense of it, is imagine, because what's the purpose if not to shame you? If everybody gathered around once they found out about
Mm-hmm.
these pictures, and then at the end when when I scramble and say finally it's me, if we don't all sit and have a conversation, if this was an intervention, you didn't sit down and have a conversation with me as a kid. You didn't
That's
sit
right.
down. You left the room. You left and just left me in this whole shame of everybody dropping their shame. And now my brother is nailing the coffin in.
Yeah.
So in my brain, I'm like, what is the purpose of this? Like, imagine
Dang.
there's no purpose to this. Like, it's just
Mm-hmm.
for the shame. It's like,
Yeah.
imagine if that intervention, even if it wasn't, I ain't even talking about even in support, because we just talked about Jazz Jennings, who had a family that was in support of
Yeah.
whatever's going on. But even if you're not in support, talking somebody through it, y'all didn't even give
Yeah.
the grace of talking through it. You just leave with the shame and the guilt, and you leave this baby with the shame and the guilt. And that is so disheartening for me. Just that a family would do that to you. And I'm sorry that they did it to you, and it's super super inappropriate, because even if you don't condone it, at least have, especially for a social worker, at least have the conversation to let you down easy a little bit, or talk through it, like, where is this coming from, da 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 da, not just shame you and then brand you as a freak. That's kind of
Mm-hmm.
that's I feel like that's the worst that you could do in that situation. So
I agree.
how did you said you kind of hunkered down and kind of turned kind of gave put that inside yourself and tried to conform, I assume.
So after that situation transpired, it did shut me down more because I was realizing that in order for me to survive, I feel like I need to be parts of myself in order to exist in this space because I didn't understand if there was anything else out there that I could truly exist in. And it did have this effect on me. It felt like I was allowing myself to kind of like be less of who I was in all forms of my life, not just in my gender expression and identity, but also fully in my idea of life and how I showed up in every space. I started to be a little bit more reserved, and it started to kind of like create suicidal ideations inside of me. I made an attempt. I made the attempt with pills, and the pills was ibuprofen pills because I didn't understand how to die. But
Glad you was stupid enough not to have it work.
exactly. But it did. It was isolation. I stopped talking to my family as much as I could, I would go straight home from school and I would run up to my room. And I think my imagination became my form of peace. And then my friendships that I had outside the house became a form of peace for me. And because I knew that my mom did not want me doing that, she literally would sometimes routinely search my room. She would search the internet for the things that I did. And also, I'm growing up at this time watching like, I'm a teenager, so I'm watching like porn and all kind of things on the internet. She would keep me off the internet. She just did not want me to have interactions. And I remember she would ground me a lot for it. It would seem like the most pettiest, trivial things that would be happening, but I was always grounded because she didn't. And I'm realizing as I got older, she didn't want me to go outside. She just didn't want me to have interactions that would influence my patterns of what I already understood for self. And she thought that, I guess, isolating me would have helped that because it's this belief system that people who don't have the lived experience is that it's just a phase and that it's just something that you can shake out of them and that you can train them in another direction. And I think my mom really felt that that was the way to go. And I remember I came to school one day just still feeling hollow and empty. And my grandfather, who is passed away now, who was a pastor, came over to our house to visit my mom. And I had ran upstairs, as I usually do, to go isolate myself in a room. And I remember my mom saying, I was standing at the the top of the stairs, listening down. And she said, Daddy, I have a real issue with what's going on with Rio. I don't know what to do. And I really don't know how I'm supposed to like love Rio through this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And my grandfather said exactly like this verbatim: Rio is still your child, right? You birthed Rio, didn't you? She was like, yeah. If you birthed Rio and you love Rio, whatever Rio is doing that you don't like, you need to give it to God and you need to learn how to love Rio fully. And my mom stopped and she paused. I remember hearing her take a sigh. And she said, I understand. She said, but what about God? She said, he said, God would not have allowed Rio to be who Rio is and you to be the parent of Rio if it wasn't ordained for you to learn how to love Rio through who Rio truly is. And you need to stop worrying about the rest. It was the first time in my entire family that I had heard a conversation that centered around growth mindset, acceptance. Because while my family tries to play the class act card where they're not outwardly rude and mean, it was very clear where they stood on the ideas of anything that was secular in their opinion, a secular lifestyle, right? So my mom, I remember her pausing and she said, okay. But she said it in this almost defeated tone. Like, okay, I need to learn how to do this, which to me was more than what I would have ever expected in the first place. So I remember when my grandfather left, a couple days passed, but she did have a conversation with me. And in the conversation that she had with me, it was almost like her trying to get a understanding of what it is that I like about how I was showing up in my presentation, and still didn't understand trans identity, still didn't understand the wording, still didn't understand how to advocate for myself. I said, Mom, do you remember when we used to walk around all the time, and how anytime we go anywhere, no matter what expression style I'm in, people have always considered me a woman, or have said to me, oh, what a pretty girl. And you've always shut them down and said, this is a boy. Stop. And she would look at me and be like, why do people look at you and think that? I want you to know that for me, it has always felt like I was fully seen when those moments would happen. But I didn't know why I felt such a instantaneous feeling of joy when someone would do that. What she considered misgendering was me feeling affirmed. And I didn't really know how to say that fully to her, but I said, but those is the moments. So I remember it started with me just taking sometimes your clothes, and I just kind of wanted just to see what it looked like. And then the reality is I fell in love with how I felt. And I said that it became almost like a fixation because I wanted to continuously feeling like that. And I started to do it when I wasn't around you. I never felt fully, I never felt fully acquainted with masculinity in general, with manhood in general. And being compared to my twin, who was the complete opposite, was a everyday experience. So every day I'm living the experience of being in the shadow of somebody who truly is affirmed in their identity and gender, whereas I'm having to play a part in a role, which made me be that timid person where I wasn't able to really express myself fully because I knew that I was in danger if I did. So I played a role for several years. Now, fast forwarding, because my mom, while she did not like it, she became a little bit more quiet. I'm starting to find myself, express myself a little bit more. I remember I went to my first and only dance, which was the Sadie Hawkins dance. And it was, um, instead of like in Michigan in the hood, we didn't wear suits and ties and what you call it. We just wore like outfit, you have to put that shit on, right? So I was not really known for fashion or dressing at the time. I actually dressed the way that I felt, which was extremely low. So I wore big t-shirts, big baggy pants, because I just wanted to shrink. I didn't really want people to acknowledge me. I didn't want people to talk about the sway of my hips. I didn't want people to call me a faggot all day. I didn't want to like be talked about. I didn't want to kind of be perceived. So I did everything I could to kind of shrink. And that was what I was known for.
Not bring
And
not bring any attention to yourself. And isn't
exactly.
that that's so reflective of so many journeys, even outside of gender. Like when I think of people whose body type isn't exactly what they want it to be, or if they're a little bit bigger, or if they're a little bit too skinny, or their physicality isn't what they feel is appropriate, or if what they're bullied about, they'll put on baggy clothes so they can't be seen. Or when a sister and a girl grows breasts and she's not comfortable with it, and they're getting too big, and like, I need to wear bigger clothes so people are not noticing it, and the world is not interacting with that particular part and seeing my body and seeing me in that kind of way. And so I see that people using clothes and style to kind of shield themselves from the world
Absolutely.
instead of people using clothes to kind of even bring attention to themselves. It can be back and forth. It can be either way.
Absolutely. I think for me, the reason, and we'll touch base on this in a little bit, but the reason why I love fashion so much is for that reason. It's because clothing is an extension of who you are. It tells the story that you sometimes don't even know how to convey fully with words. And I think for me, I've always used clothing, even prior to my understanding of my gender identity, to tell my story for me. And you're very right. It was a shrinking method. So I use that as that way. And I used to wear t-shirts that was like, now that I probably would use as sleeping clothes, t-shirts type styles. That was my fashion. And I remember the first time I even thought, because I loved fashion growing up, but I loved fashion in the ways that I knew that I could never wear it in the places that I was in. When the Sadie Hawkins dance came around, something in me said, go full out, like be you. But I knew that it felt like it was a danger zone to be me in the ways of Serenity. So I just wanted to figure out how to express myself in the fashion sense much more better than what it was, while still also being safe. And I got what I like to call my signature Mr. T Mohawk when I was in high school, except for it was like perfectly faded and everything like that. So I got it that night for the event, and I got this really cute outfit that was masculine presenting, but still kind of feminine archived. And I genuinely walked into the room, and it was the first time in the high school where it felt like people were like, "What? Okay, Rio." Da, 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 da. It was like bells and whistles had turned on because I was not used to anyone seeing me really. And it was the first time that I realized that I was actually being celebrated for my personal choice of creativity, and something ignited in me. And slowly but surely, I truly started to put more effort and attention into how I looked, how I felt. And it started to also affect my attitude and how I showed up. And while I could not be known for serenity and who I was and who I felt like truly, at least I can still start to express myself and my personality for the other parts of me. So I truly became that like resident flamboyant gay kid who was like in the school where everybody was just like, oh yeah, that's Rio, da da da. And as time went on, my fashion sense started to merge a lot more of how I really felt into it. The more that I got into that, the more that I started to also experience my relationships change with people. I noticed that I became the archetype of everyone's best friend because you like the residential person who got so much pride and happiness in yourself.
Oh my God, I want to thank all of our new patrons this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay, 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 yay. So, not only are you helping to sustain this particular podcast, I also donate to other podcasts, I donate to other organizations. I have my finger on the pulse of the community. And I know a lot of grassroots organizations that are doing great work out here. So you're not only helping to sustain us, you're helping to sustain other people in a community. Because I put my money where my mouth is. That's just the kind of bitch I am. Community is fuck. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you. And if you have not become a patron, why have you not? You can donate as low as $1 a month. It doesn't matter. Anything helps. Please. Do I have to play Sarah McLachlan and show you puppies? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to resort to what the white people do to get you to give them money? Anyway, the link is in the bottom. Back to the show.
I was working in sexual health. I had started a job maybe a year prior where I was working as a sexpert, which was a sexual health peer mentor for a clinic with a bunch of other youth who was from other school districts, where we basically were taught about HIV, sexual health, and healthcare to be able to start teaching to schools, educations, churches, and faith religions, and kind of bridging those gaps of communication. Learning about sexual health, especially centering around queer identity, exponentially heightened me because I went from being somebody who didn't know how to speak my truth to being somebody who was an educator from the age of 16 up, right? So my confidence is now skyrocketed. I'm 17 and I'm in my senior year. And in my senior year is when I started to realize I have something to offer to the world. In my bonus year, I offered it. So I winded up becoming student council president. I wound up becoming the prom committee president. In that extra year, I literally learned truly how much I show up in this world. And that combined with my education of being a sexpert, that combined with my understanding of who I was and my fashion identity, although I was still trying to figure out my expression, it had already set a tone for me. I was being respected by a lot of people in my community as far as peers because I was already doing events and going places and helping to educate. I was slowly becoming more of myself, and I didn't realize that I was gaining the confidence to do the work that I do now all these years later. So when all of that wrapped itself up, that is when I graduated from high school, and it is my last year with my mother living in Flint before she decided to move and relocate to Nevada. And it was such a surprised because she always talked about relocating, but she actually did it this time. And when she did, she originally wanted all of us to go with her, but she made the decision that she needed to do some eat, pray, love shit, and she wanted to do it by herself. And I was like, oh, okay. And she did. After I graduated, she was like, I remember it was during the summertime. She said, I just want to let y'all know, because she had just turned 40 or 50, 40. It was her 50th. I feel like it was her 50th birthday. And it was her 50th birthday. And she had said, you know, I made a lot of decisions because for the past year prior, she was talking about moving to Oregon or to Vegas. She decided that she was going to move to Reno, Nevada. She decided she was going to do it by herself. And she had just got a divorce. My mom had been divorced and remarried 6 times to 2 people. And this was her 4th time getting a divorce from her second husband. And she just was like, I just want to relocate. She said, I've raised all my kids. I just want to
And you
go.
had just graduated.
I had just graduated.
She said,
And
baby, y'all grown now. I'm about to go.
exactly. Exactly. And nobody took her serious because she had been talking about relocating for years and nothing had happened. But she really, truly meant it. It was the next part of her journey. And so she did. She wound up relocating or planning to relocate. And this was 2013.
And so she
And
just put y'all out and y'all went to y'all friend's house.
no, she didn't put us out. She literally said, y'all need to start getting y'all plans together because I want to move by December. And she moved exactly in the timeline she did. During that time frame, I was connected to 2 of my close friends, and I was planning on getting an apartment with them because we were all talking about moving out of our homes with our families to just do our own thing and split the rent 3 ways. One of them wound up moving to New York because they went to go take care of a grandparent or something that was sick. So they didn't wind up to that plan kind of fell through. And I winded up maybe the last month realizing that I needed to figure out where I was going to move to because that plan didn't go through. So I wound up living with a good friend of mine named Jules and her grandmother. And when I wound up moving with them, it really was the next chapter of my journey because it was unplanned. Now, her grandmother is like 80 or maybe late 70s at the time. And she was a church going lady. And she was just so nice. When I told her what was going on, she said, oh, it's a no-brainer. She said, I'm gonna ask my grandmother, can you stay here? And I was feeling a little uncomfortable about it, but she did ask, and her grandmother was like, yes, of course. So I wound up staying there. And because her grandmother was Christian and all these things that I was already privy to, the trauma of my past kind of prepared me for the thoughts that this was going to be another place where I had to be half of myself to survive. And something in my brain told me to still do it anyways. Because by this time I graduated high school, I had already gotten back into the understanding of my identity a little bit more. Because of the friends that I was surrounded around, we were having a sleepover one time and I was telling them, I never told y'all this, but I called it drag at the time. I was like, I used to do drag. And they was like, what? And I was like, y'all don't believe me? And I showed them pictures of 2009 Serenity on MySpace. And they was like, oh, what? That's crazy. This is a third. And I was like, yeah. And they was like, well, why you stop? I told them the story, the lore of why I wound up not doing it. And then they was like, well, I mean, you look pretty. You should do it now. I was like, even if I wanted to, I don't have any of the items anymore. One friend was like, I got makeup. The other friend was like, you can wear some of my clothes. The other one was like, I got old hair and wigs. And it was so crazy because it was almost like the re-emancipation of self was coming back to the forefront, but this time because of the collective of my friends. So I did. Keep this in mind, I did not have a beard at this time. This was just me expressing myself. I still at the time did not call it my identity. I just genuinely was just like, this is just truly like this expression that I'm learning to like fall in love with. I would post videos of me doing makeup. I would post videos of me just expressing myself. When all of that fast forward and my mom finally did decide that she was going to move, it wasn't until her 50th birthday that she came to me because she was seeing on the internet all of the things, because although my family followed me, it was much more normalized to have conversations around gender bending from the time of 2010 to 2013. And that's crazy that only in 3 years the compass changed so much around the conversations around gender expression and identity. And my family started to notice how much love I was getting in social media. And it's almost like a Black thing, I think, where people need to see it in order to kind of like, and if they can see that the general public like it, they'll accept. It's weird. It's not like, I don't know. It's like a popular thing. Like if it was generally like disgusted or discussed as disgusting to the general public, I think my family would have had a much different reaction and continued the way that they felt about it before. But
Like
I think
if you would have came out during this time and then how this public response now is so different in regards to its tone as opposed to then, that was the beginning
yes,
of this kind of trans renaissance that happened over
that's right.
of this past decade.
That's right. And it's so funny because like when people say that exposure and visibility is not important, they are lying because it changes so many people's lives, especially people coming after you. It might sound like to people who do the work that we do so often, it might sound like just us recurring saying the same things, but the reality of it is, I lived it. It's true. I watched both. I watched both realities. From 2010 to 2013 was almost like two different people. Like a time shift happened almost, and it was because I was more confident and because I also had things backing me up to showcase that you could be successful being this person, doing these things. It might be odd to you, but it is truly who I am. And I hadn't even scratched the surface on my identity yet. I just genuinely was like learning and falling back in love after years of shame. So when I did wind up moving in that space, I thought that I was going to have to revert backwards to survive. And I remember on New Year's of 2000, it was New Year's of 2014 or about to be 2014. And I remember on New Year's Eve, I wore this beautiful black dress with this satin purple outfit that I had found and put together. And I decided that day that I was going to start making video content that was specifically talking about basically like almost like a talk show style thing. Because everything else I did was kind of just random content about showing case me doing makeup random shit. And I was being intentional. And I was so scared because I knew I was in this lady's house who I knew was a church going lady. And I'm like, if she sees me and she don't like this, she could easily kick me out and I wouldn't have nowhere to go. And she was gone because I was told she was going to some church convention or event. So I thought that I had a good 3 or 4 hours to be able to do what I need to do and get it done. So I said, let me bust this video out, put this on social media, edit it later, and this and the third. She must have came home amidst me making the video, and I had the video propped up in the bathroom on the bathroom. I had my I had my laptop propped up on the bathroom sink, and I was sitting in a chair in the bathroom, doing the video. It was the door wide open, so when she comes in from the garage, it's a beeline. You can see straight into the bathroom from the minute you walk through the door, and she seen me. And when she seen me, she was like, she looked me up and down, and she looked up, and she was like, Rio? And I was like, yes. I almost didn't even recognize you. She was like, she just got close. She was like, wow. She was like, you are beautiful. And I was shocked because I'm like, not this 70-year-old Black woman from church telling me I'm beautiful and I'm not like about to be condemned and go to hell in a millisecond. You get what I'm saying? It totally changed my brain chemistry. And she looked at me and she said, I know that Jules has shown me pictures of you, but I've never seen you in person. So it's nice to see you. I don't know, I just kind of was standing there in shock almost because I'm like, I know she is not telling me that she's celebrating me right now. But
Compared
except
to the
all
last
of the
moment.
shit before. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
This
was
is a
it was almost
yeah.
like it was like retribution in its own little form. So what I will say is that after she said that to me, she was like, what are you doing? And I told her I was recording a video on my phone, my little phone that I had set up. And she said, oh, okay. She walked away. She went to her office. She came back out her office and she brought me a brand new laptop because she had a couple of them. And she said, I know that you've been using this, but I think that this probably will work out better for you. And she showed me a brand new laptop and she said, here's the code. She said, use this. She said, I think that you actually will look better with this. She said, because it got all these little features and gadgets on there that could actually really help you. Not only is she celebrating me, but she also is assisting me. And when she handed it to me, it was almost like somebody was handing me like a piece of my destiny, because when you don't feel like you're being treated incorrectly for just existing as you are, you have so much bandwidth to create because you know that you're in a space where you feel welcome to do it.
I don't know why I'm getting this image. The way you just described it was like when Link is like going through the Zelda game and he get a piece of the Triforce, a piece of the, a
Yes,
piece of the. You like, oh, this is like a key to my destiny.
it was. It was the fucking Triforce, and it was truly allowing me to learn what was about to happen next for me, because what was happening next was almost a keychain reaction for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I was with them for maybe about 6-7 months. And towards the end of that 6-7 months, it was towards the summertime, maybe August. Me and Jules started to get into it because she was jealous of the fact that me and her grandmother had a very good relationship. She didn't expect for me and her grandmother to have that kind of bond. And the reason why I think it only turned into jealousy was because her and her grandmother had a very bad relationship because she was very disrespectful to her on a usual basis. She was always yelling at her, and I just kind of that's would come to her defense, and I would be like, like there needs to be some form of boundaries about how you're talking to this woman. And she hated that, because who do you think you are when I welcomed you here into this house and you get to think you get to talk and be a part of the dynamics? And it got to a point to where we stopped talking, even though I was living in the house with her and her grandmother, that me and her was not conversing. But because her grandmother had already loved me, she was like, baby, you don't have to go nowhere until I tell you got to go somewhere. And I don't know, it just got weird because, you can't stay somewhere for too long without the idea of it becoming a problem. My time here was like expiring for some reason. And I was urged to make a rush decision. So I found myself in the throes of homelessness. But it wasn't homelessness, it was houselessness at the time, right? So I would stay with different people from different time frames. And this is all during the summertime. I was doing this for nearly 2 months of just kind of just like trying to stay from place to place. I would leave my items one place, go to another place, come back, try to find out what that looked like. And I just kind of remember feeling a little like downtrodden, because every time I thought that I had another place that I was going to stay, for some reason it wouldn't work itself out. And then I kind of just be caught back into the throes of homelessness and houselessness. And I wasn't making any videos or anything of this nature. I wasn't being able to truly understand how to express myself and my identity, because I was just in survival mode at this time. And I remember sitting on a friend's porch. He was cooking breakfast because he was living at his grandmother's house. And I stayed there for like 2 days. And I had took a shower in like 3 or 4 days. And I remember I needed to shower, but all my other clothes to change into was at another person's house. And I remember sitting on his porch, and remember a friend had told me her name was Natasha, and she told me that I could stay with her long term. So she told me just would have to wait until the end of next week because that's when it'll be available. So I said, okay, I can rough this out for a couple more days because I finally will have somewhere that I can stay for a little while. I can pay her some money for my staying there. And I remember she wrote me randomly. And I knew before I even read it that it was about to be some bullshit. She said, Rio, I just want to tell you I thought about it and I'm so sorry. I actually don't think that we should do the roommating situation. I just kind of want to have my space to myself. But I do hope that it works itself out for you. And I looked at it and I just kind of read it 3 or 4 times because I just felt so defeated, because I'm like, this just don't stop. And I remember, like, how you do that, like, laugh to keep from crying, kind of cackle, like laugh. I'm like, shit is crazy. I don't know where I need to go. I don't know what I need to make happen to make this happen, but I need to do something. And I got up off that porch, wiping my tears off. I was such a proud person that nobody knew unless I told them directly that I was going through what I was going through. because I was so scared of being perceived by people as needing help. I went into his bathroom, pulled my phone out, and I said, "Hi, I just wanted to let everyone know that for the past several weeks, I have been homeless and just going from house to house, place to place, that they're quite working out. I wanted to say that I had this understanding that this was not planned. I didn't know that this was going to happen to me, but I am truly believing that God would never take me through something that I'm not meant to go through. And this will all be for the betterment of myself and who I'm meant to be. And I don't know what that looked like, but I'm going to keep the faith in all things that's possible." And the video cut off before I could finish what I was saying, but I uploaded it. I want to say over 200 people liked it, over 100 people commented, and over maybe 50 plus people started to message me about resources between staying or resources I can do to move or go or how to sustain. I never thought in my head to go to community for those reasons. I didn't even know why I was posting a video because it's so out of character for me to do that. But I'm so glad I did. It was to me the first time I realized surrendering looks like getting the help you can in a divine way without you thinking you need to make a master plan to make it happen. And I'm so glad that I did because it was the precipice of the change of my entire life. And every decision from there started to be almost with like this partnership in my head of what do I need to do next? What do I do next? What do I do next? It's never just been me from that moment, but it started to get louder as time went on because I still have had my hard-headed ways. But I then found out about this program called Traverse Place, which was a homeless programming. This programming was transitional homeless for youth who were ages, I want to say 17 all the way to 24. And it was meant with the intention of teaching you how to learn how to transition and live on your own. So they would take at-risk or homeless or unhoused youth and they would put them into these houses. They had 4 or 5 bedrooms that was meant for the girls' side and 4 or 5 meant for the boys' side. And it was these two big houses put together.
So I want to give context about this particular thing because just in case somebody is new and don't know how our community works or how the numbers are. And when I say our community, I'm talking about all of us, not just queer community, all of us. The homeless youth, 40% of them are LGBT people.
Yes.
That is what the data says. And so, one of the reasons why that is because our family, we are really likely to be the ones that our family abandoned us and kick us out, and we ain't got nowhere to go. We're couch surfing. There's a lot of Rio just said, there's a lot of people who they may not have they don't have a lease. They might be sleeping on somebody's couch. They may not be homeless in the sense of being on the street, but they don't have a home that they can call their own. They're under the roof of somebody else. Um, Also, when you get to 17, 18 years old, and I'm telling you this from experience, when you are in a group home, I lived in a group home from the time I was 13 till I was an adult. And when you get to 18, the state kicks you out. Now they do what they can to prepare you, like, with your job and save your money and getting you an account and helping you get you a place. But you cannot stay at these group homes after you turn 18. So they start around me. Mine started around well, really they started as soon as I got there. Once they know you gonna stay, you gonna stay till you ain't got nowhere else to go. Anytime you get a job, they make sure you have an account so you can save a certain amount of money. So it started early, but
Mm-hmm.
once I hit like 16, 17, and I knew I was going to get emancipated, then they start giving you a plan of how to save money,
Yes.
save your exit strategy. So there are some people who don't follow the rules because of trauma, because
Yep.
of their own immaturity, because of the program is not really good at being in putting them in an efficient situation to get out of the house that because
That's
they have
facts.
other kids. It's so many things. So by the
That's
time
facts.
they get to 18, 17, 18, they actually just get put out and ain't got nowhere to go.
That's
Don't
facts.
don't add people who may be going through addiction, who may be going through just now getting to the first time thralls of addiction. It is so many levels. Also, foster kids. Once foster kids get 18, they not in school, them foster parents kick their ass out because they not getting no more checks from them.
Which
So,
also, you right, and I also want to add to that that a lot of times the foster kids does not have the understanding of safety or feeling safe because they've been from place to place, home to home, that they don't ever feel like anybody truly is going to love them correctly, so they don't expect it. And as they turn into adults, that same thing trickles down. So they either get hyper independent or they become extra reckless because they truly believe that nobody cares about them.
right.
And I think that I've had a lot of instances where I've came in contact with that, even through my homelessness, when I was living in these transitional living spaces, both here and in Vegas, in Flint and in Vegas. I definitely realized that a lot of people were dealing with that, and a lot of the issues that they were having was that.
And socially, just cultural on a cultural level, once you become adult, culturally, motherfuckers don't give a fuck about you. That
That's
doesn't mean
what
that you can't find
it's like.
somebody.
Almost like this switch turns on where they think
There's
you're supposed to just
literally a
know.
switch. When you are a kid, the world says we have to take care of kids. Now, this doesn't mean everybody is at your beck and call to help you. Clearly, no. But what I'm saying is that at least the default of the world is to say, take care of children, take care of children, take care of children. Do it falter something? Absolutely. But I remember when I was younger, there was a lot of people that was in my corner to help me. And once I hit adulthood, it was only voluntary and community, like community people who I just either randomly came across or yeah, usually it just randomly came across. It was no longer the adult saying, okay, well, you can't be out in these streets. That whatever that default care that adults give to children, that goes away. And so homes like Rio is talking about are that kind of cultural supplement for people who might need something from the time they're 18 to 24. And we don't have a lot of them out here, but they do exist. So yes.
I agree. And it was called Traverse Place. It was a transitional living home that was designed for youth. And I lived in there. And when I lived there, it truly ignited once again the next chapter of my journey because it was the moment that I started to understand what it felt like to kind of like start to do things on your own and to live in a space where you actually had to afford your own living. They was teaching me life skills such as cooking, cleaning. They had me do a savings account. I had me with a social worker every single week with the intention of doing a case plan, my exit strategy formatting of what that looked like. We had to do interactions with each other. Often we did weekly groups where we had to learn. We had speakers come in. We did events and outings all the time. It just was nice. It was beautiful. I was in that programming for about 6 or 7 months, and then I wound up realizing that I wanted to move and relocate because I kept having this hankering to move to Las Vegas. My mom lived in Reno, Nevada. I knew I wanted to live in Las Vegas, Nevada. A good friend of mine who was about 30, who was about 10 years my senior, she was about 30 years old when I was 20, and she had just moved down there a year prior, and she was like, Rio, you need to come down here. You would love it here. This place will set you on fire with love, da da da. And she was not lying about that. So I booked a ticket, a bus ticket on a Greyhound because I never rode in a plane and I didn't know how to take my items in my suitcases and get them shipped there. So I was like, I'm just going to ride with them across the country. So for 2.5 days, I got on this Greyhound. It was beautiful because I had never done that before, a cross country trip in that kind of manner. And the day I got to Vegas was November 14th, 2015. And it was 4 days before my 21st birthday, which was November 18th. And when I got there, my friend who had been inviting me to be there for so many years is who I was staying with. And she was like telling me all of these different things and reasons why. She said, Rio, she said, I'm a dancer on the strip. She said that I live in the house. She said, it's just me and my dog, Coco. She said, You don't have to do anything besides bring obviously some money to be able to start helping to pay for bills and stuff of this nature. You can find you a job. And she said, and eventually we can even move to an even bigger space if you want to. And I just thought it was perfect. I'm like, this is a great start for a new start of my life with somebody that I know and love and respect. When I moved there, she was not lying about anything about the idea about what Vegas offered. The lights was beautiful. I remember us driving through the city, and we was in a lift, and I remember how every tourist looks at the buildings, how I looked at the buildings. I was like, I've never seen anything so big. I just was in disbelief that this is where I live now, and that this is my new beginning. It felt like I touched gold for the first time. And while she absolutely told the truth about that, everything else was a lie. She lived in a 400 square foot studio apartment that was right off the strip. And she lived there with two dogs. One of them was not potty trained and was shitting, pissing all over the floor because she just didn't have the time or desire to potty train them. She also had another person living there who was a person who was a year and a half younger than me. It was a girl who was pregnant. And she had the girl living there, living on the couch, just a 400 square foot studio. And she also was behind on both her rent and her electric bill.
She needed help. That's what she was doing.
That's right. It hit me because mama didn't raise no fool that she definitely wanted people that was young enough that she felt like she could manipulate, but responsible enough that she knew would actually come to be able to help and do something. And it was because she was not working a 9 to 5 or getting any income of her own. So she was looking for me to kind of fill the gaps along with the other girl who was trying to fill gaps. And that's why she was pressing so hard for the year to get me to come down there. And when I realized and caught wind of that, even though I had never lived on my own before, I had just came from this transitional living programming. I'm not about to be in no shitty situation again. It's what I told myself. I'm gonna figure out how to move on my own. And me being the Scorpio Sag that I am, I'm candid and honest. I'm like, let me tell her that I'm not going to. I didn't hold it close to my vest for a little while and muddle it over just until I had money and then said it. I just kind of was like, I just think that you kind of lied about a lot of the situations here, and I don't see myself being comfortable staying here long. So I kind of think that I would like to save up my money to move out. Probably not the best decision to say that while I was in the midst of just getting there. And she knew that. She had the upper hand in that way. So she had yet to have gotten me a key for the house. I had gotten a job, two jobs actually, within the first month of me moving here. I was working at Subway. I had got two jobs on the same day because I had two interviews on the same day at two different Subways. One was in the valleys on the strip, and the other one was on the off parts of the strip. And I had got both locations, and one of them was part time, and the other one was on call. So I was like, okay, perfect, let's do it. So what I will say is that most of my shifts was in third shift. So I was the overnight person. I used to go into work at 9, I used to get off around anywhere between 4 or 5 in the morning, maybe 6. And I would sleep often during the day, which is fine because I'm a night owl usually anyways. She was completely opposite. She was a daytime girly, right? And she sleeps as light as a feather. I can get up to go use the bathroom and she's like turning over because she can hear everything. When I told her that I was moving and I still didn't have a key, I would come back around maybe like 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning, knock on the door, and I'll be knocking for hours because she wouldn't open the door. And she would tell me it's because she took some sleeping pills and she couldn't really hear me through the sleep when I know that she sleeps as light as a feather. This happened so repetitively that I had gotten used to it. I would sit on the porch for maybe 2 hours until she wanted to open the door, woke up. I would go back to the patio door, which is right by her bed, and I would knock on the patio door. I would go back to the front door and knock on that door. And I remember this happened for maybe 3 or 4 times before I was like, I really need you to give me a key while I'm here. So I said that if you're not going to be able to open the door, then I think that you really need to think about the idea that I need to be able to still get in. I'm being stuck outside often. And she said to me, well, the thing is, she said, I'll just be more listening. She said, I don't want to go through the habit of trying to go get you a key, especially if you're not going to be here for too long. So I'm just going to go ahead and just figure out how to do that. And just in the third. So I was like, okay. So I started to be more adamant about telling her exactly what time I was going to be home, exactly what time, which color, can you leave the key under the door? Can you keep the door open at this time? Whatever you have to do, every single time I did a shift, I would make sure I did it. She still wouldn't. This particular day, though, which maybe like was 3 times or 2 or 3 times after I had already had this conversation with her, she winded up leaving the door locked when I came home from what you call it. This particular day was nippy as fuck because apparently here in Vegas it gets very cold. Nobody tells you that. They only talk
At night.
about the heat. Mind you, I come from Vegas, from Flint, where I'm used to snow and all this other stuff. I had UGG boots and tall boots and winter boots and all kind of things, which I gave everything away because people had only told me how hot it gets. So I'm like, I ain't gonna need none of this. The only thing I had was this little coat, thinking that I would not need it. And the reality of it was, I did need it. And the reality of it was the only thing that kept me shivering in my boots while I was waiting for her. I remember the neighbor who was upstairs. She seen me from her balcony and she came. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." She was like, "I see you out here all the time." So I just reluctantly started telling her what was going on for me. My phone was on 1% because I was calling back to back, back to back. And the reality was is that she answered the phone but one time before it died. And I said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm knocking on the door." She said, "Oh, I just left." But I said, "What do you mean you just left?" I said, "I just got from work and I told you what time I was coming back. I need to get into the house." And she looked at me, or she looked at me, she looked at the phone, I'm parent, because she stopped talking. And she was like, I was like, "Hello, I need to get to the house. Where are you?" And she was like, "Well, you're gonna have to wait until I get back." And I'm like, "Well, when do you get back? Like, when is this?" I'm like, "What is this? Where even would you be going where you would know that I'm?" And the phone hung up before I could even finish the call. So while I'm sitting out there and the girl then comes out, I'm telling her reluctantly what was going on for me. She said, "Well, do you want to come in?" I said, "Yeah, I would appreciate that. Really, it's cold as shit." So I came in. She said, "Do you want something to drink?" Gave something to drink. She said, she asked me what was going on more. I told her what's happening. She said, "Do you want to use my phone to call her really quick while your phone is charging?" I said, "Yes, I would really enjoy that. Please." Gave her a phone. She didn't answer because she didn't know the call. The girl went to her back room and I stayed there for maybe like an hour or so or two before she came back. Finally came back, got into the house. When I got into the house, the first thing that the girl said to me was, "Why did you have that bitch call me?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she was like, "Why did you have that bitch call me?" And I was like, "I called you from her phone because I need to get into the house." And she said, "Oh, for
My
real?"
mom
And
was
she,
there.
yeah. And then she played a voice message. And the voice message was the neighbor girl saying, "You stupid bitch." She was like, how dare you have them outside the way that you have this and the third ballers. You should be ashamed of yourself. I always see them outside doing this shit, and that shit is not cool. That you need to get a key." Like, she's cussing her out. And I had no clue that she even was doing that. She went to her back room and did that of her own fruition. You get what I'm saying? So, like, I kid you not, I said, I didn't tell her to say that. I said, but honest to God, I mean, it's true. And she hated that. I was like, because I was not about to sit there and apologize for somebody else's comment. But I also agreed. I'm like, "I've been asking you for, I don't know how long. Can you give me a key? Because you can't seem to like open the door or be available to open the door. And if it's a conflict of interest, I'm still living here until I'm not." You get what I'm saying? So, like, what are we going to do about that? We got into this whole argument, this whole situation. I had this whole thing from how I've been in the past. I don't feel comfortable being in spaces where I don't feel welcomed. So I immediately exit myself out from it. So I moved out that night and I found myself yet again in a whole new city and homelessness and the throes of it. Now, my mom lives here in this city at the time. She moved to Vegas. She moved to Vegas maybe like a year prior to me moving there, but she lived in the Henderson area of Vegas, which is basically like 30, 40 minutes on the outskirts. And my mom lived in single housing units because she lives in elderly and disabled housing. The only way that somebody can live with her is if they are her spouse. And obviously, me and her is not married. So we cannot live together. She also lived with very old, picky, particular white people who genuinely, anytime I would go visit her on the bus line to go see, like, spend a night or just hang out with her, would be like, "Who is this suspicious black kid that's like over here?" So we already knew that that conversation would go left. I didn't tell my mom when I wound up entering homelessness here in Vegas because I knew she would risk it all for me to stay there. And I knew that she would risk her own housing because I had to go to work every single day. It would be a no brainer that people would see me coming in and out. So I didn't want to risk that for her. So I had not moved with her. I just kind of dealt with the throes of homelessness. And during that time, I was allowing myself to just figure out how to survive. I would go to the library that was up the street on Flamingo often. And I would sit at the library for hours on end when I wasn't at work. I would take whole baths in the bathrooms that was around there. And then I would go back to work because I worked third shift. I would kind of just try to figure out what I needed to do in between that time. And I did that for about a week or two or so. And I remember when I finally got over it and I called my mom and I told her what was happening to me. And she was so pissed because she was like, why didn't you tell me ahead of time? And I said, because I already know what this looks like for you. And I'm not trying to put you in any type of situation. And she was the first person that brought it to my mind. She was like, well, what about a program that you did similar to before? Like, do you think they have programs like that? And it didn't even cross my mind that they could have a program like that here in Vegas that they had there in Flint. And I was like, well, I don't know. I was like, I mean, this worth researching. Went to the library and found this program called St. Vincent Help Apartments. St. Vincent Help Apartments was apartments that was designed with the intention of giving you housing for very deducted rates. So St. Vincent is connected to Catholic Charities, which is one of the biggest places here for housing and homelessness. And they go off of your income amount and they give you like a studio, kitchenette kind of apartment style thing. Um, I was just right below the amount needed to be able to live in the apartment because I was just at the perfect age, but I didn't have enough money. They told me I didn't qualify. So I was back at square one. I was just about to walk out the door with my mom. And the man has said, how old are you again? And I said, 21. And he looked and he pointed to these ratty two-story duplex that had this sign on the side of it that said Shannon West Homeless Youth Center. He said, you should probably try over there. He said, because you're about the age that they accept people. And I looked over there and I seen the sign. We walked into the gates and we walked into the main office that was down there in the front. And they said, we currently are full, but we do have emergency shelter programs. The emergency shelter program lasts up to 30 days. And if you want to stay here, you can. However, if we don't have any availability after 30 days, we don't have space for you to stay longer than that. So we can always hope that something becomes available by that time. So I crossed my fingers with the hopes that something did become available by that time. I did the full 30 days, and by the end of the 30 days, I found out that it was available. And after I found out it was available, they then said to me that you can stay here longer. The program was designed to be up to 2 years that you can stay in this program. It was transitioning so you save money, you meet with a case manager, they help you get schooling and everything. And when I tell you that program changed my life. And I wound up becoming like almost the face of homelessness here in Nevada for a little while because they noticed that I was a good speaker. They noticed that I was educated. I did the things that I need to do. And they wanted to use that to get funding.
Programs will exploit the fuck out of you.
They exploit, yes.
If you are, I think it happens with, but particularly anybody who kind of grew up even adjacent to church. Church teaches you how to speak and be a good orator and all that kind of stuff. And when people see that you can do that, baby, especially you, if you are a person who if they can put you up on a pedestal, like, look at this shining specimen of who we helped. They
Yes.
will put you on that podium and that pedestal and make you the spokesperson because you know you got the gift of gab.
Yes, and they did. If you Google my full name, my birth name, which is Del Rio Perkins, you will see nothing but interviews and da 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 and this and third. But what I will say is that I appreciate it though because while it definitely was, I felt the sense of pride about the fact that my journey became much more beautiful after living in this programming, because had I not been there, I don't even know what I would have been going through. I don't know how I would have traversed. I'm pretty sure I would have survived, obviously, but I think that it would have been a much different experience than it actually was. And I got to meet so many people in this program. It's not just homeless people. This program gets funding for people who were mental health, people who were there because they were sent there for probationary reasons from being at risk, and what you call it, youth. It was kids who were prostituting themselves prior to moving there. You get what I'm saying? And these is all things that I had biases against, internal biases that was kind of triggered because of people like my twin who was like gang affiliated, and I just hated how the trickle effect was coming up again in these situations. I'm like, ugh, and vice versa for them with me. Like, look at this like little queer bee, that just run around here like, like it was a very much mirroring. And it's so funny because as time went on, some of these people became some of my best friends because the walls came down and the realization of the humanism started to come into play. And we all would just be like, we would have never guessed that we would be friends with somebody like you or you or you or me. And I just think that that program really did change my perspective of how to show up for people and with people, especially people who have different lived experiences, and how to show up for myself, even when I'm meeting people who don't get me. You get what I'm saying? Because when you expand from 65 people to being a program that has up to 180 people, you literally become someone that has to interact with multitudes of people on a daily basis, whether you want to or not. Now, I got
And
into a lot of
you're talking
arguments.
about two different regions of the country. There is a big cultural difference in the Midwest, northern Midwest, opposed to Vegas.
Oh,
There's a
yes.
big cultural difference.
Yes, and actually, it's so funny because it wasn't until I moved to Vegas that I actually realized how beautiful I was and how welcoming someone could actually be, even if you identified specifically as a cis straight male who had no inkling or desire to be with someone who wasn't. And I think that to me, I didn't even have my first real heteronormative friend who was a male until I got to Vegas. And it was crazy because I was like learning things that I had already had internal biases about. Like I was learning that, to be in queer culture is to never really fully be able to express yourself, to almost have this kind of still shame connected to the idea of wanting to be in romance, because like you're not around people who are open enough, even if you're open, to be open enough with you in return and be like, oh, I want to share this great love story with you. And Vegas really taught me that you can get all of it and then some, because people are much more open. So I really do give a lot of my self-discovery to the city that I have been in. So fast forwarding from there, I definitely think that after we moved to the other location, I was at a much better space. I stayed there for 2 years. And in those 2 years that I was there, I saved all the money I could. I did all the things I could. I finished that school and phlebotomy school. And after I left, I wound up going to work for neither. I wound up becoming a social worker by accident. And the reason why is because I was working for the local LGBTQ Center of Southern Nevada. I was using some of my background when I worked at HIV healthcare to work for the center program that they had there. And I was the health education risk reduction coordinator. So my job was to reach out to the so it was outreach, and then it started to transform into social work and case management. So when it started with the outreach, my job was to work with MSM. My job was work with the trans community. My job was to work with all HIV care patients. I had a full caseload of maybe about 80 to 100 on a usual basis, and my job was to maintain or get them expedited into care. And it was absolutely fantastic. It was my first, as I like to say, big girl job, and I enjoyed it so much. I wound up leaving from there, and I wound up becoming so I started working for a behavioral health Clark County Medical Group, and there I was working as an assistant for the director of the programmings. I wound up working myself up until I became the director of programs for the health education portion, for the mental health portion of things, and I worked there for X amount, for I want to say maybe like 3 or 4 months, because I knew it wasn't my calling. I did enjoy the work that I did there, though. I think that the work there really transformed my understanding of how much I was good at working with people outside of the queer community, and not just focusing on the queer community, but really that my work and efforts can touch anyone. And these are people who are of all age ranges. Most of them were from ages 40 to 70, which I didn't realize I love old people. I was like, oh, I love older people. Not 40 is not the older people. It's the people who are in like the 70s and up. But what I will say is I got a call back from the Veteran Partnerships for Homeless Youth because I was doing advocacy work at this time. At the same time as me working as a social worker, I was still working with this program called Young Adults in Charge because I was still in the age range to be a part of this. We were passing bills for homeless youth. We had got several bills passed through legislation. We were able to travel and do a lot of partnerships. We was getting recognized by the mayor. We were
Now,
doing a lot of.
wait. What the fuck is Serenity?
Listen, I'm trying to break this down to you. I got you. I got you.
Because
I
I'm
got you.
like, how do we haven't you ain't explored like how are you navigating even these homeless spaces where it's like, where's your identity coming at? Are you kind of suppressing it at this time? Are
Yes.
you
So what's happening is because you are right. I think that what's happening is that when I was in Shannon West, I was staying in boys and then the girls units.
Mhm.
So because they were realizing that they didn't have a space for people who were gender neutral, gender nonconforming, or non-binary. They didn't have any of these spaces designed or any programs was ready for something like this. I was actually there at the precipice of the changes of these programmings. I went through a lot of different emotional turmoils because of the fact that these programs didn't have the formats that they had. They would try to make space, but it would also have a ripple effect. So, like when I lived with the girls' dorms, it worked out really well. I actually went one of my best friends from living in the girls' dorms with them. But because my identity was always centered around the idea that it was both simultaneously without me realizing that that's what was happening. I genuinely in my head thought that I needed to interact only in a either in a masculine or only in a feminine energy. Does this make sense? Because the
You
idea
felt like
was
you
for
had to pick a side.
that's exactly right, because that's the way that the world explained this to me. So my journey through these things was like partnered along with the idea of how I was feeling about myself outside of my gender too. So like I was learning my power of how to show up in spaces while also still trying to learn how to fall in love with myself through my gender journey. So I started to kind of like feel like it was either this or that, this or that. I still in my head am not saying what my gender is, but it started to play several different expressions throughout that time. So as I'm fast forwarding to the new building, when we got into the new place that now has 160 people, I'm now a veteran here basically. And I lived in the transitional apartments that they had available. So in my transitional apartments that they had available, I was able to start kind of like learning more about myself because now I'm working full time and I'm doing all these things. I've gotten all the things that I need to get done here. I'm just now basically just trying to learn adulthood at its fullness while in the throes of it, but I'm doing it through this program. So I did start to express my gender identity a lot more around that time. And it was fully more accepted because I was now seen as like a local leader inside the space. Like a lot of the people who worked there would come to me to help new people coming in, to help them navigate. They knew that I loved helping people. They would basically use me as like a peer support specialist almost, like unpaid persons, but peer persons
Exploited.
nonetheless.
Exploited.
Yes. Yes. So when I did finally move out and I started to move on my own, is when I started to start that journey with my gender identity. When I moved on my own after leaving out of the transitional living portion, I had never lived alone in my life before. I had never realized that until I actually lived alone. And I did not like what I was hearing while I was talking to myself. I found out that a lot of things that I thought was okay with me about me was actually things that I questioned a lot. And because I didn't have anyone around that I needed to fix, all I had was myself and my own thoughts. And because I didn't like how I was talking to myself, I thought that I was worthless and I thought that something needed to change. So I was going through bouts of depression and sadness. And I remember that I had this understanding. I was like, something needs to change. And it was at this point that I thought that I needed to live my life as a full trans woman. And the reason why was because I knew that I was extremely happy when I was in the throes and identity of Serenity. I knew that that is when I felt my most powerful, my most valuable, my most light. And it was almost like I was still battling this back and forth between Rio and Serenity. It was just always this pull and take because I was always seeing them as two different individuals.
I watched an interview with you, and you said that once you started to live in the truth of Serenity, it started to feel like you were going from one cage of the first is like the initial boyhood, like, oh my God, this a man is due to do like this, da da da. But you had got past that and kind of was in kind of your queer stage, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
like even that
Was
still is a
blocked.
box. It
Mm-hmm.
still had these parameters, and then you say, "Hey, I feel happiest in this space," but you come to learn that while those are cages too, this motherfucker is a cage too. This
Yeah.
this feminine cage is a cage too. It's your body has to be a certain way, your look has to be a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta even when you hear people having conversations, other trans people, it's like, oh, passable, da da da. It's all these kind of boxes of that. So I wanted you to kind of go deeper into how you know you felt about those cages and what you
Okay.
think about
I think that you are on the money 100%. I think that to me, the problem that I was having was that the only reason why I even walked into the idea of being in the identity of a full trans woman was because everyone around me was like, well, to be honest with you, like you already feel so powerful. And it was true. I did. I feel very powerful as Serenity. And I think that it was a no-brainer, the idea of like doing it because there was like a general consensus and also just the understanding of what I had. I didn't have an understanding of how to also say, well, I also am like learning to fall in love with this like middle area of me. I didn't know how to say that shit because that shit was not something that came to the forefront. It was like the same thing as I didn't know how to say it back when I was like in 10th grade. I didn't know how to convey the nuances of my identity because it was either this or this. And because trans identity by this time was becoming generally acceptable and loved and valued in mainstream identity for a lot of people, they were genuinely like, oh, well, you must be this. And I'm like,
because
well,
what year
okay,
was this?
okay. 2017, 2018.
Right. So this is at the height of Pose. Pose is just coming out. The girls are Orange is the New Black. We're seeing this love of trans people because Ogerfeld just passed in
Mm-hmm.
2015 to give the gays their gay marriage. So now the
Mm-hmm.
new frontier of the queer fight is the trans fight. It's the little the LGBT, the little T was now becoming the big T because now the
That's
spotlight is
facts.
on the trans community. And so now because we haven't had this backlash that we're having currently 2025, it was now, ooh, we've been the queer communities, we've been knowing the trans people. Now we can show them love. Now we got our marriage. Yes, the trans fight. Now it becomes the litmus test for politicians. Because if you remember, prior to gay marriage passing, what they would ask politicians to get the gays on their side was, what are your feelings about gay marriage?
Mm-hmm.
That was the,
Mm-hmm.
the litmus test on if they were on our side. And even the Obamas, the Hillarys, all of them, they went from we don't fuck with it till we do fuck with it when it comes to gay marriage. And now that that is passed on a federal level, now we got to look for something else to fundraise for when we think about HRC, when we think about all these orgs, these juggernaut big orgs who now what we gonna now the gay marriage is done, what do we go to now? And the trans was right there. So that's when
Yeah.
we see after 2015, 16, 17, 18, everybody, even Hollywood, saying, let's open the door to the trans people. And anybody who was in position who had already been doing work. When we think about Laverne, people learn about Laverne Cox in Orange is the New Black. But because I'm a trans woman, Laverne had been on her hustle
Oh
long
yes, she
time
was on
ago.
P Diddy's show.
Yeah, she was on P. Diddy show,
Mm-hmm.
P. Diddy's assistant.
She was on some show for MTV where she was doing a style
Some
thing with two
style
other
stuff. So
trans women.
she did a dancing movie about some of disabled people in she had positioned herself to be the actress that to be celebrated. So I want there's two things that I want to say. That part, but also be on your path because when the world is ready for you, you need to be ready for it. So that's what I learned from Laverne. She
That's
had
facts.
been doing her fucking
That's
path,
facts.
and soon as the world was ready, boom, she was the one who had the experience to do it. Bam, she was there. So
That's
make sure that
facts.
you're doing your shit. But also, the time that you're talking about is a time when trans looked a certain way, it was being celebrated in a certain way, and the girls who were way binary was the ones who were like, "Ooh, this is how you do trans," and it's more acceptable.
Gatekeeping is
Yes,
what it was. It was gatekeeping. But here's what I will say is that it was almost like welcoming and opening door to a whole new world and a whole new beast as well. And I think a lot of times people discount that journey. It can be very disheartening when you are trans in any kind of way and don't have the specific parameters of what they think considers trans to be because somebody did it this way and you do it this way. And I think it just opens the doors to those kind of little gray conversations that start to be like, well, you're not doing it enough. My biggest issue has been that I was told that I needed to do it in a certain parameter in order for it to exist in that specific way. And I did everything well. I think that I was socially lucky in the sense that I've always had a very feminine presenting demeanor, manner, and ability to kind of like present. So I had never had any of those concerns or issues. This is prior to me growing a beard. So I just never had it concerned about being, as they like to say, clockable in those time frames. And I think that that alone is what made me feel like I still was being seen fully because it wasn't about me being unclockable. It was about me being everything that I feel like I am inside. I remember that I was so very distraught because I didn't start growing facial hair until around the time that I actually was like, I want to start my transition. And it's so crazy because it was cringy to me to see facial hair on me. And I would shave all the time. And obviously I would then have all the acne scars and I would have the shaving bumps because I'm trying to shave
dark
often.
crunch.
Yes. I was like, oh, I'm going to go get the laser hair removal. I'm gonna do all the whole process. I'm gonna do all of these things because
Or
I
you
want to
gotta
be
do
able.
a gross ass magic shave because it at least will give you a smoother. It just so
Yes, a
many
smoother
bad.
finish.
Yeah.
Yes. And I genuinely was like, I'm gonna do all of these processes because I really want to be able to do it right. It wasn't because I wanted it for myself, it's because I wanted to do it right.
Yeah.
And the idea of that, as time kept going on, it felt like I was performing. I think that a lot of people don't talk about that in general. And even if you're not non-binary, people don't talk about how gender can sometimes feel like a performance, and I talk to a lot of trans men about the same thing. They are like oftentimes feeling like they having to perform masculinity rather than just being the man that they are and how they authentically comes to them. And I think the same thing happens with trans women. I think there is a often performance that is happening because this is womanhood. This is how you get respected. And I think that maybe it's the inner rebel in me, who knows. But one day I was going to shave and I kind of just like was like, well, what if I don't? And I was very like, I was laughing at myself actually about it. I was like, what if I don't? And I just didn't. And I think maybe a week passed because my hair grew very quickly. And I was like, ooh, this is not cute. This is giving like little stubble. Da, 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 this is the third. I said, I'm going to try to tough this out. Something like spirit was like, tough it out. Just see how it goes. See how you feel about it. And I did. And in 2019 is when it came into full fruition for me. I remember I did a full face And when I did that full face and full understanding, but I had a full juicy beard, it wasn't that I felt like I was a boy dressing up as a girl. It wasn't that I felt like a girl dressing up like I was a boy. It was that I was everything. And honestly, when you looked at me, you wouldn't be able to know what the fuck was going on. Was I a cis woman with PCOS? Was I a trans woman who just wanted to do this? Was I non-binary? Was I? And I think the conversation,
Or a butch queen just in a wig.
or a butch queen in a wig, and I think
You
that for
don't
me,
know.
it changed everything because it was the first time that I felt like I wasn't in the throes of trying to be perceived correctly. I actually stopped thinking about perception completely, and I let whatever people perceive be their truth of me.
So let me
And
ask this. Let me ask this in the vein of that.
mm,
So, like you just explained, gender is a performance for us all, not just trans people, not just queer people,
absolutely.
cis people too. Gender is a fucking performance. All of us are performing our gender the way we either was taught or or in nuanced ways that because even if you see think about the high film girls in pink and blonde hair or long hair or whatever that high whatever you consider high film. There is actually another kind of film, that kind of goth film, that alternative film, that Afro-futuristic black film. There's alternative to that film that still is a high film performance. And we all have those nuance in how we perform our gender. If you are a black girl and you don't like to look like a white girl, but your look is more of a bangy black girl look. You got the hoops, you got the hood black girl, you got however you picture hood black girl. That culture has informed you to look like that black girl. And that's a performance. We all have, even men when they are trying to be that hood boy or that hood nigga, that is a performance, whether it be sagging, whether it be however the hood niggas dress in they hood, the colors they wear, all of that is gender performance. So I want to say that
Yes.
the difference is some of us like our performance. And some of us like the performance that we do, and it goes along with the culture
Mm-hmm.
in a positive way. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
go against the grain.
Mm-hmm.
And some of us like, I don't really fuck with this. I want to go with this. But even if they go with something else, like me, I didn't want to fuck with being a man. But my performance is a high film black woman. And so while that goes against the grain in the narrative of my assigned sex at birth, it does not go against the grain of womanhood. I'm not trying to I want to make sure that my face is clear. I want to make sure that my look is that still goes along with the culture. My
I
question
agree.
to you is, you said I don't know if it's the rebellious in me, but isn't that rebellion a performance too?
What do you
Like
mean?
when think about it, like when we have you just said, so I had everything done, and I said, but what if I don't shave it? And there's something in you that say, I can do this. Fuck what everybody else say.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a rebellious performance, similar to how people used to do when they would this isn't as taboo now, but even people getting their whole body tattooed. Back in the day, that was a rebellious act. Now we see it
Mm-hmm.
commonly, but back in the day, it was something that was so uncommon that it was a rebellious thing. I want my body to look like a walking piece of art, or even that kind of Marilyn Manson look
Yes.
is
Mm-hmm.
anti culture, and that is a
Mm-hmm.
performance within itself. So explain, how do you feel about
I definitely feel like you're right in the terminology that everything we do in life is a performance. So I absolutely 100% agree with that. And I think that to me, in the famous words of many people, the reality of it is that we everything that we decide to put on from the minute that we wake up is going to tell the story for us in every way. And I think that that to me is just what it is. When I decided that I wanted to make sure that my outward expression was totally connected to everything that I felt on the inside. I do think that it can be considered a part of performance as well, much like anything else. But it was with the intention of altruistic truth. Like the idea of giving real truth to my story rather than the idea of parts of it. And you are right. I think that there's many people who have the ability to be able to feel very comfortable in certain lines and parameters that aligns with the way society is congruent. But I'm not one of them. And it's not because I'm different. It's not because I'm better. It's because the reality of it is that I don't feel safe or comfortable any other way. And I think that though I've tried, and I've tried in every direction, which is the point of this entire story, I think where I found me is in that gray. And there's many people like me, and there's many people who do it differently than me, but still feels the same way as me. And I think my goal is to share that story. My goal is to not only shed light to the parts that is popular, to the parts that everyone can easily grasp, but to shed it to the ones where people kind of don't want to look at it too long. People kind of want to turn away from it because it kind of is questionable or it's too gray to be able to make sense. It's too great to the people who are cis hetero because they don't think that they think it's too extreme. It's too great to the people who are in the trans identities that kind of goes in alignment with the cis identity format because it feels like it is making people question them. And I think that the thing is, to me, the fuck you of it all comes from that point of like, that has nothing to do with me. That has everything to do with how you feel about your journey. And if my journey affects your journey in a negative way, you really got to ask how stern is your journey for self. So I think that that to me is what it is. My juxtaposition of self causes conflict and enlightenment at the same time. Because usually people are questioning or having to question their own internal biases when they're interacting with me as a whole because either they lean in or they lean out because they're like, I'm intrigued, or they're like, ugh, what the fuck? Because it's going to trigger something either you don't know or something you want to know. And after that, you then get to decide what kind of human you are. Because I'm going to always be available to give you the information because I'm very secure in where I am. So, my job on this earth is to share with you what you may not know. And even if you do know, to just brush the shit off and dust it off to refresh it. That's my job on this earth. So when people meet me and I walk away from you to do whatever my next mission is, you get to sit with it, marinate, or you get to evolve it and change it and add it to your repertoire. And a lot of people chooses the latter. They do choose to add it to their repertoire, which is why I'm so glad that I do the work that I do and that my life can be that mission.
I think that that is beautiful because I think that for me, I think that that is a pillar of trans purpose right now. I think that if we can go up against the system that we call patriarchy, white supremacy, these big old systems, these big mountainous systems, and say, I am going to control my own life and go totally against whatever you motherfuckers is talking about, religious systems, white supremacy, all the shit that we talk about, patriarchy, and say, I'm doing me how I do me. If we can make this big decision and be happy and be joyous, standing on our 2 feet and saying, this is who we are, them little decisions y'all other motherfuckers is making that are controlling y'all life, your mama's opinions, your mama's rules, your daddy's rules, bitch, that shit is nothing. Like if we are the possibility models that we can go totally in a whole different direction and be successful and happy, you making the decision on whether or not you want to be a singer when your parents want you to be a dentist. That little decision seems so small when we are making these, we are possibility models of controlling your own life, your own
Mm,
narrative, and the power in that. If we can be that inspiration for you to even make that small decision to control your life.
that's
I
right.
feel like I think that is a beautiful space and a space that I love to be in as a trans person. If you want to be a little bit more butch just because you see me being as high femme as I am, if you want to be a little bit more non-binary because you see me saying fuck all that shit. You may not be going all the way over here, but you can go a little bit. Whatever that inspires you to do, I think that that's the power of trans people. I do.
I agree. I want to add to that though as well that I think that the beauty of where we are with our trans culture today is that a lot of people who are not in trans culture or queer culture are understanding the nuances and beauty of it because it does translate, just like you said, into everyone else's life. The little decisions that you make is all about you having control over your own destiny. And seeing somebody who takes full control on a daily basis of their destiny is a mirror. It makes you have to evaluate if you're doing the same or not. And a lot of people fear is that we just might be right. And that's the problem. It's not that it's fear of the person, it's fear of, well, that would change everything. Exactly.
Yeah.
It would.
Gimme euphoria, more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme euphoria, more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme you the feeling and the high you never come down from. Whoa.
What is bringing you euphoria this week?
What's bringing me euphoria is that so I just started a new stage play. It's my first time doing this theater stage play. And we were doing our fitting for our outfits and our hair. And I remember the hair that they tried to give me, because I'm the only Black person in the show, was this tall, beautiful Black woman. And it's pretty, but it's not something that I feel very beautiful in, especially in comparison to all my counterparts who have these flowing, beautiful locks. And they were doing it in this specific way where it felt like they were trying to play on my Blackness, even if they were intentionally doing it, without me feeling like I could be a part of that process. And I went and I made a power move and I went and had my own wig made and adjusted for the show. And every time I put it on for this performance, I feel exactly like I wanted to feel before I walk out on that stage. So I'm feeling this euphoria and this power as this queen who gets to like walk on this stage and just be beautiful, while also being funny and entertaining. So I'm feeling this. I'm feeling that currently as my most main euphoria because my dream is being actively lived in while I'm actually feeling beautiful and not stressed about the way it's coming across to myself. I feel very happy with it. When I'm looking at pictures of it, I'm like, yeah, that's right.
I love that.
And what
I,
about you?
what's making me feel euphoria is it's so many things. This was for the past 5 years has been like a really sad time because this is around the anniversary of my mom's death. My mom died December
Mm.
the 18th of 2020,
Mm.
and her birthday is December the 4th. So her birthday and the anniversary of her death is December. It's like the beginning of December. So I'm like, ugh,
It's a lot.
it's a lot. But this is the first year that I haven't been um the weight of grief has not been on me. I have
Mm.
been feeling the images of my mother has been bringing joy and memories of stuff that just things I remember. I cooked some chitlins for Thanksgiving. I cooked like just different things, some just things that make me think that have been making me think of her around this time. Her birthday, her my little brothers, their children, and how I see her personality in them. I was with them for over the holidays, and just things that remind me of her, just smells and things, instead of them bringing me sadness like they normally would be triggered like an emotional sad emotional response. They are no longer doing that. They are bringing me happy thoughts and joyous thoughts and euphoria. And so as I go into this holiday, I am hoping that that feeling of euphoria and thoughts of my mother, and even her coming in my dreams will be thoughts of joy, because that's what it has been for the past this whole year. I don't remember one time that I literally cried about my mom. It's always been happy. So yeah, so this normally is a dark time, but this is actually a euphoric time now, because I don't think you ever not miss your mom once she passes, but it does get easier over time. When people say time heals everything, it feels like this is the 5-year anniversary. So I'm like, ooh, it doesn't feel as heavy. It feels like, oh, I can revere my mom and feel special about it. So yeah, that's what's bringing me euphoria this week.
I think that's so beautiful, first of all. And you should be so happy that you are in a space where that genuinely feels like that. Grief is a very tricky situation, but it's so beautiful when you can start to look past grief and feel the joy of those moments, because that is what remains. You start to be like, damn, all these beautiful things that we did and the things that you remember. I'm very happy for you in that way.
So Rio, tell the people where they can find you on social media.
Well, you can find me on all platforms, which my main platforms is Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can also find me at my website. But via the social media platforms, you can find me at Rio Antone, which is spelled RIOANTONE. And you can also go and trickle over to my website, where you can find moi and all of the things that I do and the things that's coming up for you, which is at rioantone.com. That's what? rioantone.com. And I am super elated to share that I also have a new workbook that I have shared called it's a manifestation workbook, and it is called Manifest Destiny, Crafting the Life That You've Always Imagined. It is a step-by-step how-to guide guru on not just understanding the dreams that you have, but understanding how to get out of your own way in general. And it is not just a tool book. It is a book that helps you understand the quality of life in general. So this book will help you with everything that you do, not just some things. It is now available in ebook and audio, which is $9.99 available. You can purchase it on my website. And if you are interested, you can also get the bundle package, or as I like to call, the Ascension package, that also offers both the audiobook, the handbook for you to write in person, and the audio that allows you to listen to it on the go, along with a full playlist of songs that I made that allows you to both manifest, allows you to clear your mind, allows you to dance and move and use yourself as a full tool, as an extension of your growth. It is genuinely some of the best things that I feel like I've ever created. And I think you'll like it too.
Well, thank you for joining us, and make sure y'all like and subscribe, and yeah, we will see y'all next week. Well, that's it. Thank you for coming and getting a taste of Marsha's plate. You can listen to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Make sure you leave a review, because we really need those 5 stars, y'all.
And go like our Facebook page and leave some comments. We'll be posting exclusive content every Thursday, so you definitely don't want to miss out.
You can also follow us on Twitter and any other social media site at Marsha's Plate. If you'd like to donate or advertise with us, hit us up at diamondstylz@gmail.com. That's Diamond STYLZ@gmail.com.
And that's it for us, y'all. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You gonna say bye, Mia?
Oh, bye, y'all.
Every little thing's gonna be alright. Don't you worry about a thing. Baby, it's gonna be alright.